It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the crisis in maternity care laid bare. Dirty wards, women being ignored, and some tragic consequences. The chair of a review into England's NHS maternity services said nothing could have prepared her for the scale of unacceptable care in the system.
It just cannot continue. There is too much harm, too much distress, too much trauma.
We'll hear why parents just aren't convinced the review will lead to substantial change. Also ahead, condemnation of the security services after an investigation into a British agent inside the IRA says they allowed him to commit murder. A damning report says the spy known as Steak Knife must now be publicly named by the government after he was found to have been involved in some of the most serious crimes during the Troubles. Plus, after months of delay, the former Children's Commissioner Anne Longfield is announced as the chair of the National Grooming Gangs Inquiry, and she vows to confront difficult truths. Plus, we'll hear from the 16-year-old who is now cancer-free after she became the first patient to receive an experimental gene therapy treatment for an aggressive form of leukemia. All that to come and a lot more here on the UK Tonight. Good evening, it's good to have you with us. Women not being listened to, left to bleed in bathrooms, filthy wards, and even worse, babies dying unnecessarily. These are the terrible findings of a damning report into maternity services in England that's laid bare a crisis in care. Baroness Amos has published her initial findings after meeting affected families as part of her investigation that will look into 12 NHS trusts. A set of recommendations for maternity care across England will follow, but some parents say they have no hope that it will lead to any real change. Our health correspondent, Laura Bundock, has been taking a look.
I was sick up to 30 to 36 times a day. I couldn't function, but I was never believed. I was told everybody gets sick in pregnancy. Even when I was laying on a toilet floor in A&E for 6 hours, unable to get up, they still didn't believe me.
I nearly lost my baby due to doctors not listening to me. I was sent home at 6 a.m. with contractions that were 3 minutes apart. The doctor was rude and discharged me. I drove home while in labour.
My midwife told me to stop making noise and refused to give me gas and air. No one came to check on me for over an hour, and I was on my own and terrified with my first baby.
These birth stories shared with Sky News are shocking and sobering, each voice reflecting a failing system, and all a reminder why the maternity investigation is so badly needed. Its preliminary report highlights depressingly familiar problems: women not being listened to, a lack of empathy or care when things go wrong, discrimination of Black and Asian women and those who are younger or poorer, and a lack of basic care like help going to the loo or getting meals. During the last decade, 748 recommendations have been made about NHS maternity services, but the system is still failing.
It just cannot continue. There is too much harm, too much distress, too much trauma, and the long-term consequences for families, for communities, and for all of us are almost unbearable.
Rebecca formed a campaign after experiencing 2 traumatic births. For her, the investigation's initial report is deeply disappointing.
It seems as though it is heading the same way that other reviews have gone in the past, leading to some recommendations, but no teeth. We really need some mechanisms that are going to hold people and hold systems to account so that we can see change.
The full findings will be published in the spring. There is huge demand for action, but after so many failures, many a doubtful, meaningful change will be delivered. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Oxford.
Well, yesterday we brought you the stories of some of those women who've suffered really traumatic births in the health service, with many saying they were made to feel voiceless during those times. One of those we spoke to was Jo Cruz, who I'm really pleased to say joins me now in the studio. And we're also joined from Kent by Ashley Grist, who got in touch with us here at Sky News after seeing the birth trauma film yesterday. Ashley, great of you to get in touch. Jo, it's great to see you as well. I know your stories, both of you, and they are just jaw-dropping in terms of the experiences you've had. Jo, just sum up what you went through, because to say it sounds painful is an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly not the birth I expected. So I had my daughter in October 2021, and I went into labour on a Saturday at home, and kind of laboured through until the Sunday. And I went in on the Sunday evening, and was sent home because I wasn't told I was sufficiently dilated. Went back in on the Monday morning, really in acute pain. It was very clear to me that the labour was progressed, but I basically wasn't believed. I was left for a couple of hours without any pain relief on an anti-ward. I wasn't let onto the labour ward, and then had a really kind of rushed delivery where I experienced physical injury, and you know, was left with post-traumatic stress disorder as a result.
Because they should have carried out an operation which is fairly common during childbirth, an episiotomy. They didn't, which made things so much harder, so much more painful for you.
It absolutely did. I mean, I think in many ways my case was a kind of series of errors. It was a perfect storm in a lot of ways. I was told I was going to have an epidural, and then I was told there wasn't time for that, and then I was told I would have an episiotomy, and then there wasn't time for that. So in the end, I delivered without pain relief in a situation that no mother should ever be put in.
We'll come back to the mental impacts on you both before and after in a second, but Ashley, I want to bring you in because I know you heard some of the stories like Jo's yesterday, and we're really glad you got in touch. But your story, there's so many elements to it, and we don't have time to do it justice now, but it happened it was 11 years ago, because your daughter's now 11. You were quite young yourself, 20 years old. And your experience, well, I'm sure you can relate to Jo, in that you just didn't feel you were being listened to at any point.
No. Listening to her story made me feel quite seen. I listened to that quite early this morning. I don't usually write into things, but after I listened, it made me realise that I didn't receive the care that I should have received. And being quite young, I mean, 20 is not that young, but you're still a baby. I didn't realise it at the time. I was really quite unwell, and we did repeatedly tell people that I was unwell, which they didn't seem to listen to me. So one day my husband took me to A&E, where I had told them, they told me that, you know, everyone gets sick during pregnancy. And I was left for 6 hours on the toilet floor whilst he waited in the waiting area. And I was sore, I was exhausted, I was dehydrated, I was kind of losing consciousness.
Actually, let me come in, because this is more than morning sickness. This was constant, but they treated it like it was normal, when obviously, I think it's similar to something that the Princess of Wales had when she was giving birth. That was quite well covered at the time. Was it similar to that?
Yeah, so actually we were pregnant at the same time, and that's what I found most difficult, because it wasn't something that no one knew what it was. It was all over the news, it was in magazines. I was telling everyone this is how I feel, but it just, I don't know, I think people maybe set in their ways, and because I was young, it was very much a, come on, you're a woman, you know, we need to crack on with it. So I didn't feel I was able to advocate for myself. But as I say, when they eventually saw me after 6 hours on the toilet floor in A&E, they kind of all panicked and they kind of rushed around, and it was almost like a conveyor belt of bowls they were passing along, and it was, they believed me for a minute, but there was no compassion, there was no support. And actually, you know, your first baby is it's a special time, and it was all a blur for me. My mum bought me a book which you write in every day and you say how you're feeling. Yeah. And I think I filled in 2-3 pages and just said, horrible, I feel sad, I don't feel like I'm able to tell anyone.
Let's talk about some of the knock-on effects, because you've been diagnosed since with PTSD as a result of this, and you're convinced that some of the things that were difficult about the birth of your daughter, I know you've had a son since, but that were difficult for her, have had consequences for her as she's grown through childhood.
Yes, my daughter suffers with a very severe eating disorder. Maybe it comes from hyperemesis, I don't know, but, you know, I am her voice, and it comes from feeling like I didn't have a voice. I've been openly told by so many specialists that I have exhausted all the services that are available to her, and until my daughter is visually malnourished and collapsing, there will be no help for her. But also I was told that she was going to have Down syndrome and dwarfism.
Yeah.
And I was expecting a very abnormally small baby, which wasn't the case. It was quite.
She was over 9 pounds when she was born, I think you said. So
Yeah.
a really healthy size.
Yeah,
Listen,
she was very big.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, let me come back to you, because before I ask you both about whether you think these recommendations are going to make a difference, your mental state before and after had been an issue. It was something you told them you had anxiety about things. A sympathetic midwife made a note of this. Nothing was done.
Yeah, I think, you know, my story isn't unique in that I wasn't listened to before, during and after I gave birth. And, you know, that is something we hear time and time again. I mean, suicide is the leading cause of death in women between 6 weeks and 12 months postpartum. That should be a source of national outrage. Women are being failed profoundly. And, you know, I think we live in a society where women are often pitted against their own bodies. It feels like a profound act as a woman to advocate for yourself, particularly in a healthcare environment. So to be in an environment and to be advocating for yourself and your health and well-being, and for that to not be listened to is a really significant thing.
I'd like to ask you both if you think there's too much pressure both on the healthcare professionals, the system is letting them down when there's lots of doctors and lots of nurses and midwives just trying their best. And also, Joe, if there's too much pressure on you as a parent, a new parent, to do things a certain way.
I think often mothers and midwives are pitted against each other, and I think that's a really unhelpful narrative. You know, when I was in hospital, I saw midwives doing their absolute best to deliver care in completely impossible circumstances. And, you know, fault should lie with those who are responsible for the system, and that is at a ministerial level. It is not with midwives and health professionals, the vast majority of whom are doing their absolute best.
Actually, let me ask you, Baroness Amos said she was shocked by what she'd seen. We've had her initial findings today. There will be the full findings in the spring, and Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, says he intends to act on those. Given what you've been through, given what you've heard from Joe, and I know you've probably both heard from lots of other mums as well, actually, are you optimistic that things could change, that situations like yours and Joe's will not happen in the future?
I mean, personally, I've only seen things kind of get worse over the years, and I think you're right. I don't think that there is a lot of support for the people that are working, but equally, I feel that along the way, there seems to be a loss of compassion. I mean, people go into these jobs because they want to help and because they care. To be fair, there was one midwife who she needs her flowers. She was incredible, but then a lot of people, I would say, I didn't feel that they did care. I didn't think there was compassion. I didn't think there was support. And I think it was very much a case of next, who's next? Okay, that's done. That's such a shame. Let's move on from that. I mean, after I had my daughter, she was moved into a room where all our family was. Yeah. Which was beautiful for them. I feel like I had a moment stolen from me, and I'll never get that back. But I think it's a combination of being understaffed and under a lot of pressure, and also just a lack of compassion by some people.
Joe, how about you? Do you think, just to finish off, that this could make a difference? Or do you feel like a lot of parents we've heard from around this, they're just not optimistic that it's going to change things?
I run a campaign called Delivering Better, and we hear every day from women, birthing people, parents, families who are failed profoundly by this system. I think if things are going to change, we need to stare in the face why and how we've got here. This is not an accident. It's a logical expression of a system which has been underfunded and not prioritised women's health, and that needs to change.
Jo, Ashley, really appreciate you both talking to me. I can't obviously know or imagine what it must have been like. I've seen it. I'm a dad. My wife went through childbirth, and she didn't have a great situation either. I mean, I think it seems woefully common that people have these terrible stories relating to what should be one of the happiest times of your lives. Thank you both so much for talking to me about this. In response to the stories we've just been hearing, the failure in the maternity service, a Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson said that too many women and families have been devastated by serious failings in NHS maternity and neonatal care. They say we are determined to deliver lasting change and ensure all families receive safe, high-quality maternity care. We've commissioned an urgent national independent investigation, they say, and are setting up a task force to root out systemic failures and deliver a plan of action. Next, a report into a notorious spy operating at the heart of the IRA during the Troubles in Northern Ireland has found that British security services allowed him to commit murders and impeded a police investigation into his crimes. Investigators are accusing MI5 of serious failings in its handling of the agent known as Steak Knife, saying the agency had greater and earlier knowledge of his activities than previously known. There are now calls for the government to officially name the spy, who's widely believed to be a West Belfast man, Freddie Scappaticci, who died in 2023. Our Ireland correspondent Stephen Murphy has more on this.
In the middle of a dirty, brutal war, he rose to become its most famous mole. Freddie Scappaticci, the Belfast brickie turned spy catcher, the IRA man who hunted informers all the while in the pocket of the Crown. Codenamed Steak Knife, he was implicated in dozens of murders, kidnapping and torture, while his British handlers allowed people to die to protect their golden egg.
I just want to know the truth. It's 45 years ago, almost to the day, since my brother was taken and tortured by Steak Knife.
A team investigating his activities now urging the UK government to finally confirm that Steak Knife was the late Freddie Scappaticci.
As this final report makes clear, we in Canova believe there is a compelling ethical case for the UK government to derogate from the NCND policy regarding the agent Steak Knife's identity. It is in the public interest that Steak Knife is named.
You're both urging the UK government to name, finally, Steak Knife and to reveal his identity. Is that enough? Shouldn't you be really urging the UK government and the Prime Minister to issue a full apology?
So I have a very strong position that that should happen. I was very clear in March last year. And the response from previous Secretary of State was because of ongoing legal matters that couldn't happen. Well, I'm afraid I think that's utter nonsense.
The Northern Ireland Secretary seemed to pour cold water on the idea of naming Steak Knife.
The government's first duty is, of course, to protect national security, and identifying agents risks jeopardising this.
The investigation team had harsh words for MI5, which only provided valuable material late in the process, hindering investigators. This was a significant failure, they said. MI5 has apologised and offered sympathies to victims' relatives.
I just want somebody to take me into a room and tell me the truth. If they want to put a non-disclosure agreement to it, I'll sign that. The authorities had all the details and did nothing. And 45 years on, I'm sitting here really none the wiser.
I'm telling you, I'm not guilty of any of these allegations.
Defiant to the last, Scappaticci died 2 years ago, having never been charged with a Troubles-related crime. Prosecutors have already decided this investigation will not result in any new prosecutions. For the victims of the dirtiest of spy games, it feels the chance of real justice has been buried with Steak Knife. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Belfast.
You're watching the UK Tonight here on Sky News. Up next, a chair is named to lead the national inquiry into grooming gangs following months of delay. Also, as Australia becomes the first country to ban under-16s from using social media, we ask, should the UK do the same? And the teenage girl with incurable blood cancer who's now actually living disease-free thanks to an incredible and pioneering new treatment. I've been speaking to her too.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
The Prime Minister is among those who paid tribute to a member of the British Armed Forces who's died in Ukraine in what's being described as a tragic accident. Our Security and Defence editor Deborah Haynes joins us from Ukraine right now. Deborah, any more detail about what happened here?
Yeah, so I'm actually back in London now. Like last time we spoke, I was in Ukraine, but I got back on Sunday. But yeah, no, really awful news coming from the Ministry of Defence tonight. In a statement, they confirmed the death of a serving member of the UK Armed Forces. They said that this person died today following what they described as a tragic accident while this person was watching a defensive capability being tested. It's understood that there was no hostile action involved, but this is the first time that it has been confirmed that a serving member of the UK military has been killed in Ukraine. We've obviously had in the past several former British military personnel who chose to travel to Ukraine to fight alongside the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, the UK government has in the past acknowledged that there are a small number of serving British personnel in Ukraine. We know that some of them are helping to provide security for the diplomatic mission in the country. We've got an ambassador there, an embassy and diplomatic staff. And then there are other personnel who are providing support for the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, very little is known about exactly what they do. It's obviously a sensitive mission, and there are obviously concerns that Russia would try to exploit the idea that there are UK military personnel on the ground falsely claiming they're fighting alongside the Ukrainians. That's not the case. It's very much they're there in a supportive role and in very small numbers. But clearly the fact that this individual has been killed and this person's family has been informed, it does underline that they are taking risks out there, and this mission really isn't very well known to the public.
Deborah, thanks so much. Next, a former Children's Commissioner has been named as the chair of the National Inquiry into Grooming Gangs. Baroness Anne Longfield's appointment follows months of delay in which a number of women quit the survivors panel and 2 candidates to lead the investigation pulled out as well. She's vowed not to shy away from difficult truths during the inquiry, which the Home Secretary says will be a moment of reckoning for the nation. Our Home editor Jason Farrell's been following the story.
The women bold enough to tell us their stories over many years now finally know who will attempt to lead the investigation into the institutions and the people who failed them.
What is required now is a moment of reckoning. We must cast fresh light on this darkness. The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield.
Anne Longfield, appointed Children's Commissioner by David Cameron, is a respected advocate for children. She gave evidence to the COVID inquiry on the impact of lockdown, produced numerous reports on forms of exploitation, and helped raise the alarm on County Line's drug gangs.
The kids that I meet who are the ones that are what they would call the collateral, the ones that are doing the operational stuff on the ground, being groomed. These are often small, vulnerable children.
But in a press conference on Monday, the opposition called for a judge to lead the inquiry. Alongside them was survivor Fiona Goddard, who today tweeted she was disappointed at the appointment, as is Marlon West, father of survivor Scarlett, who was groomed and sexually exploited as a teenager. His concern is the new chair is a Labour peer, an establishment figure.
She's historically a long-term member of Labour. And a lot of the survivors are concerned with trust around Labour, especially what's previously happened over the last few months. We wanted legal representative. The reason for that is many of the survivors have not had any justice legally. and we was hoping that it would be a judge.
But the woman who blew the whistle in Rotherham, exposing the exploitation of 1,400 girls, Jane Senior, believes that the new chair is right for the job.
I've known Anne for a lot of years. She's very children-focused, and I do believe she'll do a good job. And I think her and Baroness Louise Casey together will be quite a formidable team, and will get us to the answers that, wow, that we've been waiting for 20 plus years.
Some of the survivors saying she's a bit too much of a Labour establishment figure. What would you say to them?
I think we need to put politics to one side of this, and we need to search for the truth.
Home Secretary.
The opposition asked this.
So can the Home Secretary assure the House that those in authority who covered up these crimes will be prosecuted for the offence of misconduct in public office? And will she ensure the inquiry refers such cases to the police for investigation?
The answer was yes. This review also promises to look at ethnicity of perpetrators, institutional and individual failures, and it will be time limited to 3 years. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
A murder investigation is underway after a 15-year-old boy was stabbed to death in broad daylight in North London today. Oliver Whitfield Miocic joins me now to tell us more about this. Bring us up to speed on what happened.
So this 999 coming in just after 1 p.m. this afternoon. So as you say, in broad daylight in a residential area in Islington in North London. The police and the air ambulance attending and paramedics tried their best to save this 15-year-old boy. They treated his stab wound at the scene. He was then sent to hospital, but he's then died in hospital. Now, we've heard from the Metropolitan Police's commander for the local area policing. This is Chief Superintendent Jason Stewart, who says, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends of the victim at this incredibly sad and difficult time. We understand this is incredibly concerning for the community, particularly considering the young age of the victim. Officers are in the area carrying out urgent inquiries and cordons remain in place. I'd urge anyone who saw the incident or has any information to please get in touch with us or to do so anonymously through Crime Stoppers." Now, I spoke to the police about an hour ago. No arrests have been made so far, so the perpetrator or perpetrators of this attack are still at large. The police are continuing their urgent inquiries. There are a number of streets that remain closed in the area. The local council has passed on its condolences so far, though we haven't heard anything from the Mayor of London.
Ollie, thank you very much. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, Australia introduces a world-first ban on under-16s using social media. We'll be debating whether the UK should consider following suit. Australia has become the first country in the world to impose a minimum age for social media, with platforms like Instagram, YouTube and TikTok forced to block under-16s or face hefty fines. Of course, this is the UK tonight, but the issue of online harm for young people is something we've often focused on, and the ban raises the question of whether similar legislation should be considered here in Britain. Joining me now to discuss this is the founder of the Unplugged Coalition, Jennifer Powers, and also Dr. Joe Hickman-Dunn, who's a research fellow in social media and adolescent mental health and well-being. Jennifer, Joe, it's good to see you both. Jennifer, first, you're in favour of this. Why?
I think there is a growing evidence base that is just too compelling to ignore, which shows the immense damage that social media and group chat incredible damage it's doing to our children. And I think it's incumbent on us to protect them. And the best thing that we can do for them is to delay giving them smartphones until they're through puberty, to creating a minimum age for social media access, such as they're doing in Australia, and really reflect on how we get them playing in groups and playing outside more, and really giving them the freedom to have children. So I'm really hopeful and optimistic about what's happening in Australia, and I hope the UK government will consider doing something similar here in the UK.
Joe, you're not convinced by what Australia's doing. Why?
I guess to be clear, Jennifer and I are not far from the same page in terms of, I certainly think we have a responsibility to keep young people safe online. I think our opinion, though, is that a ban is not a silver bullet, and it's a relatively blunt tool for what's quite a complex issue, and possibly over the long term isn't the most appropriate solution. I would say that the evidence base around the impact of social media on young people's mental health and their well-being is not as clear-cut as it's been expressed. It's actually quite messy, and it's nuanced, and also it shows there are lots of positives alongside the negatives. So we would argue for a more balanced approach that engages young people in that policy development process as well.
What could that look like then, Joe? If I'll come back to you in a minute, Jennifer, I promise. Okay. But Joe, to you first. If not this, then what would you like to see instead, if anything?
Yeah, I think we advocate for it to come from both angles, so that definitely there is improvements in regulation. So I think the effect of that online harms on the Safety Act is yet to be fully realised, and how effective that is, we don't know. But I definitely advocate for better regulation. There is still a responsibility to platforms to build in safety by design. And, social media platforms are systems that have been designed, and we can design them better. There's absolutely no reason why we can't do that. And we should be doing that with young people. Young people say they do want regulation. They don't just want unfettered access, but they want to be able to access the things that they enjoy and are beneficial for them. And there are lots of parts of being on social media that is beneficial for them. So we would advocate for that, better regulation, but also better support, better social media literacy education. Why would we delay that conversation until a young person is 17? Why can't we have that conversation when they are 11, 12, 13? And I don't think we're doing it early enough now. We're waiting until young people are into their teenage years to have those conversations, and that's too late, and it's not helpful.
Sometimes though, it feels like Pandora's box is open. You're never going to close it again, and time goes by as a dad of teenagers having those conversations. It's almost like King Canute fighting the inevitable, right? Jennifer, what do you think? I know you were nodding along to what some of Joe was saying there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful to Joe for laying out her arguments in favor of continuing to have open access for children to the internet, because it allows me to kind of take them in turn. And, we know the harm that's happening. It's not really contested anymore. I appreciate that researchers will always want to do more research. I appreciate they have a vested interest in continuing to do the research and to get funding and so on. And that's great. And, I appreciate the expertise that involves. And the tech companies are the other group that definitely want more research to happen and argue against something that we can all see with our own eyes. We all know that children are spending too long online. We all know that that these devices and these platforms are addictive by design. So I live in the real world and I have to accept the world as it is, not as I want it to be. And in the real world, these devices are not safe by design. They are addictive by design. And so the balanced, rational approach is not to wait and to do ever more research. It's to see the damage that's happening, that we know is happening with our own eyes, and to actually create a minimum age, much like we do for other activities. You know, we don't let 5-year-olds join the army. We don't let 6-year-olds buy alcohol. Why on earth should we have a minimum age for social media?
Yeah, well, you're right. Alcohol has, you have to be over 18.
Right. Thank you. I'm glad we're on the same page. I think now is the time to act. And, you know, this whole idea that we put the onus on children, this whole idea that like digital literacy, that we need to teach a 5-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old how to be safe online. No, don't put that burden on them. They're kids. It's our job to protect them.
Let me clarify what I was saying you were right about, which is not allowing children to smoke and to drink, and you have to be 18 to buy alcohol. But we all know plenty of kids under that age still get it, right? And so
that's fair.
Let's turn this on its head. The idea you hear from a lot of Australian children is, well, they know their way around a VPN. They're going to use other kinds of apps to communicate. Look, for example, there's a very well-known exercise app which tracks where you've run and ridden, and you hear stories of kids using that to DM each other if they can't use Snapchat or whatever else. So, Jennifer, back to you, and Joe, I'll return to you in a second. Jennifer, back to you. Kids are going to find a way around this, whatever. And so the prohibition, as you see with lots of things, only makes it more attractive, doesn't it?
I love that. Thank you so much for raising that, because I just think that's such a defeatist argument that I love being able to point out that, you know, we don't say, kids will just find heroin. So why even try to keep them off drugs? You know, if your child became a drug addict, you would do everything you could to get them treatment and keep them safe. I'm not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Yes, of course, one child will bring a burner phone to school. Yes, of course, some children will get a VPN. But the fact is, bringing in a minimum age for social media for something that we know is net negative to our children's health and well-being is just the common sense thing to do.
Let me put this back to Joe. The common sense thing to do, Joe, yes, kids may find a way around it, but if you're trying to put barriers in their place, at least that gives you an excuse to then try and educate them as to why that barrier is in place in the first place.
I think that actually, though, it creates a bigger risk, which is that there is no space for young people to have conversations with adults about social media. It will be shut down. And I think as it is at the moment, the easiest thing for an adult to say for a young person who's under 13 that is using social media is that you're not supposed to be using it. And that doesn't teach them anything, really. So I think there is a bigger danger here that young people don't have the space to talk about it. They aren't able to seek help when they need it. And we talk about, or there's this idea that we need to be able to reclaim young people's childhoods. But what are we trying to reclaim? Because technology is now very much a fundamental part of all of our lives.
It's interesting, though, Joe, just to come back, it's interesting. There are anecdotal, I appreciate you'll want the research, but there are anecdotal stories of kids actually wanting to turn their back on a lot of this stuff. And certainly when you're looking at visual social media, so much of it is AI slop now that maybe that's just going to kill the whole thing anyway. It's not going to be believable. It's all generated by a computer. And therefore, what they are interested in now is not going to be there in a year's time. I mean, it could just die as quickly as it arrived in the first place, Joe, couldn't it?
I think that's a very nice point, actually, because the way we will change things for the better is in young people leading that and them leading that change.
Yeah.
So if young people want to make those changes and they want to put their foot down, I think that's the most impactful way we will get positive change.
Very quick, because we've only got 30 seconds left, but very quick final question to you both. Jennifer first, then Joe. Do you think it should come in here? Do you think it will or not?
I think absolutely, eventually, social media will have a minimum age of 16. I think ultimately we need to get tablets out of prams, we need to get smartphones out of schools, and we need to get kids off social media. The question is when, and I hope it happens sooner rather than later.
Jo, to you, final word.
I think there will be improved regulation, including age restrictions on various aspects. I don't think there will be a full ban.
Jennifer Powers, Dr. Jo Hickman-Dunn, really appreciate both your time on this and appreciate the discussion. Thank you very much indeed. You are watching the UK Tonight here on Sky News. We'll be hearing next from the teenage girl who thought she would die of a really aggressive form of leukemia. Now she's living disease-free after undergoing a pioneering treatment. She's amazing. Hear from her in a moment. And also in sport, England's hopes of launching an Ashes fight back are dealt another blow.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
Welcome to the DHL Sports Hub on Sky News. There's a first new British world champion in Formula One since 2009. And coming up, we've reaction from Lando Norris and McLaren after he took his maiden title on Sunday. We will also hear tributes from some of the drivers he's been up against this season, including 7-time winner Lewis Hamilton, after he became the 11th person from the United Kingdom to finish ahead of the rest. But let's start with how Norris saw off two of his rivals to claim his first world championship, as well as his team McLaren's first in 16 years. He secured the third-place finish he needed in Abu Dhabi to guarantee himself the trophy, edging out the 4-time winner Max Verstappen by just 2 points. Well, these were the scenes as Norris celebrated after a race in which the outcome was always going in his favour. That's despite Oscar Piastri, his teammate and the third contender, overtaking him on the opening lap before a number of attacks from Ferrari's Charles Leclerc from fourth. Verstappen won with his 8th victory of the year, and long-time championship leader Piastri was second, but both ultimately came up short with a composed drive from Norris into the final podium position, enough to keep him in front.
I don't want to talk too much, because I always do, but you know, this is my dream. I mean, I got my parents here, my family here. They're the ones who have supported me since day one, so nice that a win was a little bit, but a championship is a real way to say thank you to them for everything that they believed in, for supporting me. It makes me so happy, and all I want to do is make my team happy, and that's what I've done today, so that's the best thing ever. I've been with McLaren for many years. Feels like a very long time. It's like, what, almost 9 years now that I've been here, part of the papaya, and plenty of ups, plenty of downs. But this year was a tough one, you know, it was the first chance to really fight for a championship. Oscar gave it an incredible run, and I want to celebrate with him. I know, yeah, it's a tricky one, but he's been just as much part of it as anyone else. He's pushed me, he's made me fight for it. He made me have to go well above and beyond what I was performing at in order to fight Max. Max is, I think, in my opinion, one of the best you'll ever see in Formula One. He's a 4-time world champion. He's probably going to be world champion a few more times. He will go down as one of the best ever in Formula One. And I'm very happy that I got to race against him and try and prove myself against him. I don't care where you rank me against him, but he is one of the best you'll ever see. And I'm happy that we managed to come out on top this year. And it might be different next year, but my job was, and how to win a championship is not through one race or who can win the race by the biggest margin. It's about consistency, and that's what we had this season. For me, I want to win and I want to make my team happy. I don't care if you think I'm the best in the world or I'm not the best in the world. It doesn't bother me. My life is seeing this. It's making my mechanics happy, making my engineers happy, making my family happy. The championship wasn't won today. It was won over the last few weeks and over the course of the season. And I just did what I had to do, so I'm very happy.
We made our life more difficult than, you know, ideal. But I'm just so proud. I think being proud of the team is my main feeling at the moment. Being proud of how everyone responded to the call this season. The call to elevate the game compared to last year. The demand has been huge. You know, two drivers in the contest, trying to do it the McLaren way, trying to be fair, respectful. It's been a lot of work, but the team has been so united. Even when we had our bumps on the road, everyone was stuck with a culture of progress, a culture of trying to seek all the improvement, unity. And I'm just so happy that the team have been rewarded with this success that is Lando's, but is also a team success.
There's a lot of excitement. You know, we have a new world champion. That's the big thing. We've got a driver who started this weekend not as world champion, a new #1 on the grid. And there is a lot of support behind Lando, and there's been a lot of support this year. People have loved it going to the final race, loved that there was a bit of jeopardy in there. And Lando's been able to perform. He had that comfort of being fit to finish P3, and you know, they'll all look back and look at what could have been different through the year, but he's got it done when he mattered, and he lifted his game when it mattered.
You know, Lando giving himself and showing his vulnerabilities and being open, authentic all the time. That's why he's the most popular driver out there at the moment in the world. He has the most amount of fans. So I think a perfect ending to the season. He made changes. So that's what I've heard. Like, for example, he switched off social media. You know, before he's like constantly on social media. It eats you up. So he really did make changes, questioned his approach, improved things, and then it showed on the racetrack. So really brilliant effort from him this year to find all those improvements personally within him.
Norris finishes just 2 points ahead of Verstappen, whose reign as champion comes to an end after 1,457 days. Piastri, who, like Norris, had 7 wins in 2025, finishes third, just 13 points behind. After McLaren won the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes are runners-up ahead of Red Bull. Well, Norris also took this year's DHL Fastest Lap Award, claiming 6 of them over the season, like Piastri, but scoring more race points. It was Charles Leclerc who came out on top in the final race, just edging out Piastri to deny him an overall victory there. Leclerc was also involved as Ferrari rounded off a resounding victory in the DHL Fastest Pit Stop with the quickest time at Yas Marina. A visit of exactly 2 seconds means they finished 149 points clear of closest challengers McLaren. It was Ferrari's sporting director Diego Ioverno who collected the trophy on behalf of the Scuderia, as they at least rounded off what's been a disappointing campaign for them with a prize which reflects a clear improvement in their race day operations. While Norris's success denied Max Verstappen the chance to become the first driver in F1 history to win 5 consecutive titles, as his brilliant surge in the second half of the season came just too late. The Dutchman's effort saw him named as Driver of the Day presented by Salesforce for the 4th round in a row, as he just edged out the man who succeeds him as champion. Verstappen had been 104 points adrift after the Dutch Grand Prix, and had he won the title from there, it would have been the biggest comeback in F1 history.
We've had a roller coaster of a year, especially in the beginning, but I think how we turn it around and the results that we have achieved after honestly having tough times after the race where you just don't know why it's bad or this bad or that inconsistent. It's not easy, but I think the team has really showed that they never give up. I mean, it's easy to say, well, this is it, right? 100 points plus, season is done, but they always kept trying to understand the issues, and I think we really did. Yeah, it's been fun, honestly. Like the fight back has been really fun. And at the end, of course, it doesn't matter if you finish behind by 1 point, 10 points, 20 points, you're behind. It's 2 points now at the end, but it's been cool.
As for Piastri, it's very much a case of what might have been. He was 34 points ahead at one stage, but no victories in the final 9 Grand Prix, and only 3 podium appearances in that sequence saw him drop back.
It's been a fun challenge, I think. Obviously at certain points, maybe it doesn't feel that fun, but I think it's been a really enjoyable season for both of us, probably. And I'm saying that as the person that's not champion. So. I've learned plenty of things along the way. I think even the last 3 years, I've learned things every weekend from what Lando does, and it's nice to know that it goes both ways. So, there's plenty more years to come of intense weekends and tight battles. But ultimately, I think that's made both of us better drivers.
Well, Norris's victory makes him the 11th Briton to win the world title. His compatriot and 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton was among those in the paddock afterwards, paying tribute to him for his achievements.
Winning your first world championship is truly special. The UK continues to pump out great drivers, and I think I know what the feeling is also when you're coming into this race and fighting for your first championship is nerve-wracking.
Happy for him as a person, because I think he's a driver that doesn't follow the typical stereotype of world champion. I think he's always stayed very true to himself, very honest, very open about his own struggles, and he's just proven to everyone that you can also be world champion being that good guy or that open.
Anyone who wins a championship, it takes a huge amount of hard work, and a few years ago maybe I would have wished it to be somebody else other than a fellow Englishman, but honestly now I'm happy for him, because I think, especially the second half of the year, he's driven really amazingly.
This program is delivered by DHL, the official logistics partner of VSL.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.